We're here today to discuss the amendments in Bill 12, the Financial Statutes Amendment Act. The fact sheet you were provided has a detailed list of proposed legislative changes, but I'd like to take a moment to outline some of the highlights. First on the list are proposed changes that will strengthen oversight in a number of areas. We're proposing changes to the Securities Act to support companies in disclosing environmental information in good faith. The changes would protect companies from frivolous lawsuits, allowing them to disclose and progress without the fear of reprisal. We're also proposing changes that would address false or misleading information about stocks circulated by bad actors. These changes would allow the Alberta Securities Commission to temporarily halt trading on stocks where misleading information could negatively impact investors. The government is also amending the Tobacco Tax Amendment Act. Contraband tobacco not only undermines public health and makes tobacco more available for minors, it creates unfair competition for legal retailers and diminishes revenue that funds the programs and services Albertans rely on. Proposed changes under the Tobacco Tax Act would enact new fines and mandatory reporting. These tools would help enforcement remove contraband tobacco from our province. Next, we're proposing some changes to lay the foundation as Alberta seeks to attract investment in data centers. We're proposing a new levy on large-scale data centers beginning in 2026 to make sure Alberta receives a fair return on the use of our resources. Minister Glubish will go into more details on the levy shortly. Next, this bill makes key changes to ensure flexible and effective program delivery for Albertans. This includes the necessary legislative changes to launch the new Alberta Disability Assistance Program and the Public Trustee Act, as well as the Adult Guardianship and Trustee Act. My colleague, Minister Nixon, will speak more about these proposed amendments in a moment. Other legislative changes will increase the annual funding limit for the Alberta Heroes Fund for first responders. There is no higher form of public service than to risk one's life to protect public safety. And this fund is one way to honor those sacrifices while helping to ease the financial burdens for families. Increasing the fund's annual limit ensures there is enough set aside to cover all eligible claims without the need for new regulation and red tape if the annual limit is exceeded. As well, we're making amendments to the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation Act. I want to be clear that the changes we're making don't alter policy and they don't reflect a new position or approach to the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. Instead, we are providing some certainty that Alberta's government continues to financially backstop the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation now and into the future. We are also proposing amendments to the AIMCO Act to support the work of AIMCO as Alberta's primary investment manager. In November 2024, we appointed new leadership at AIMCO to reset its mandate to deliver the very best returns at lower costs for Albertans and pensioners. This amendment will remove any potential liabilities from the volatility trading strategy that operated from 2018 to 2020. This action protects taxpayers' money, avoiding significant financial risk and curtailing future legal costs over past investment losses. Finally, on your list, you'll see some housekeeping amendments. For example, we're proposing changes to the Legislative Assembly Act that would provide guidelines for the payment of parliamentary secretaries. And there are a number of other amendments that provide clarity, fix phrasing and typographical errors, ensure our legislation aligns with federal legislation, and other slight updates. These housekeeping changes don't impact policy in any way. I now welcome the Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services to the podium to speak about proposed changes to his legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. 1 in 5 Albertans are living with a disability. That means statistically, each of us know and love at least one person who is living with a disability. I know I certainly do. As each of us who loves someone with a disability intuitively understands, no two people are the same. Each has their own individual strengths, abilities, and needs, which is why, back in February, I announced that Alberta's government would be introducing the Alberta Disability Assistance Program, or ADAP. Albertans with disabilities and the organizations that support them have long been clear. They need programs that meet their unique needs and abilities rather than continuing to be forced into a one-size-fits-all solution currently offered by AISH. There are thousands of Albertans who do not meet strict thresholds for AISH and who may be eligible but have also chosen not to participate in the current program, because AISH was not built to support those who are able to earn a paycheck. AISH, like disability programs across the country, penalizes people for getting a job. We've heard the importance of providing pathways to employment for individuals who are able to work, but still need the support of benefits. That's where ADAP comes in. It's a program built explicitly to support Albertans with disabilities who are able to work, empowering them with tools and resources they need to gain new skills and work to their full potential while continuing to receive the benefits that they need. A program that will allow Albertans with disabilities to earn the highest employment income in the country and will ensure they continue to receive health and personal benefits that they rely on, regardless of how much they earn. Most of us don't think twice about what work gives us: community, purpose, independence. But for many people with disabilities, it's not that straightforward. Under the current system, the moment they start building a career or earning a paycheck, they risk losing the supports that they rely on. That's not fair, and it does not reflect the reality of many Albertans' lives. We believe Albertans with disabilities who can work should have every opportunity to build a life that includes meaningful employment, not barriers that discourage it. That's why I'm pleased to share that the Financial Statutes Amendment Act contains the amendments that will enable the Alberta Disability Assistance Program, making Alberta a leader in disability supports, inclusion, and employment. I want to also be very clear. AISH will still be around for those who need it, providing the highest provincial disability benefit in the country. The proposed amendments would combine both the AISH and ADAP program under one act, ensuring our disability programs support both those who cannot work and those who can, and that both remain strong, aligned, and responsive to Albertans' needs. Alberta already provides some of the most comprehensive disability supports in the country, and with these changes, we're making sure that continues today and in the future. Alberta's government is also committed to ensuring that when Albertans turn to the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee for help, they can access that help in a very timely manner. If passed, the proposed amendments to the Adult Guardianship and Trustee Act and the Public Trustee Act would modernize legislation that hasn't been substantially updated for nearly 2 decades. Together, these amendments would update outdated legislation and improve outcomes for vulnerable Albertans. Families would experience fewer delays when urgent decisions are needed. Resources would be redirected to focus on specific client needs, and accountability measures would be strengthened to ensure decision-making is transparent and in the best interest of vulnerable Albertans. The proposed amendments reaffirm Alberta's government's commitment to ensuring vulnerable Albertans receive the support they need, when and where they need it. Thank you. And I think I'm turning over to Minister Glubish, or
right.
Yeah. Minister.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, everybody. So I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about the data center side of this legislation. As you all know, a year ago, I led the launch of Alberta's data center attraction strategy, and we've been hard at work trying to make Alberta a destination of choice in North America for this type of investment. We see it as an enormous opportunity to grow our tax base, to grow domestic demand for our natural resources with natural gas-fired power generation that would be required in order to support these facilities. And one of the things that we've said all along is that we want to make sure that the projects that do proceed are going to be in the provincial interest, in the public interest. And that means that they need to pay their fair share of taxes. Now, if every data center proponent were to recognize all of the value they create out of their facility in Alberta and pay corporate income taxes, everything would be perfect. But we also know that many of these proponents are international companies that have the financial sophistication to financially engineer their profits out into other jurisdictions, even if it's just to save a couple of basis points on their tax rates. And we don't think that's okay. So what we've done is we have followed the lead of many other jurisdictions across North America to implement a levy on the compute hardware. What does this mean? You may have heard the term tax the racks. Well, you have racks and racks of chips that are doing the computation in these data centers. And this equipment is quite expensive. And so many other jurisdictions have done this before us. We're going to have a levy on that equipment. And that levy is going to be 2% for any facility that is grid connected and grid reliant. It will be 1% on that equipment for any project that is supplying their own electricity, but still connected to the grid for redundancy in case their power supply goes down for maintenance. And then it will be 0% for any facility that is completely disconnected from the grid. In other words, completely off grid. And this is in line with what the Premier and I have been saying along, is we want to encourage projects that bring their own power, This is what is good for all of Albertans because it will bring more power generation to Alberta. It will build resilience in our grid. And ultimately will lead to the economic activity we want to see without any of the negative side effects. So we are engineering the outcome that we want to see that will be in the interest of all Albertans. One of the things that is unique about our levy is that we are making it abatable, fully abatable against your corporate income taxes. So as I said, if everybody recognized all of the value that they create with their data centers in Alberta, all of the value of the new AI models that they train, the value of the new technologies that they create using that compute infrastructure, we would be happy with that. So at the end of the day, for every dollar that you pay in corporate income tax in Alberta, that will come off of your levy obligation. And this is designed in such a way that if you actually recognize all of the value you create, it is highly likely you will not pay a single dollar on the levy, you will simply pay corporate income taxes. And we would be thrilled with that outcome, and I think Albertans would be too. At the end of the day, if these sites are going to use Albertans' power and water and land, we simply want them to be good corporate citizens and pay their fair share. That's what this levy is designed to do. We are very bullish on data centers as a big opportunity for Alberta, but make no mistake, we'll make sure that the projects that do proceed are in the public interest. Thank you, and we'll take some questions now.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our formal remarks. We'll now move to media question and answer. We'll have time for one question, one follow-up. With that, we'll start in the room and then go to the reporters on the line. All right, Catherine, please go ahead.
Sure. So Catherine Gurkowski, all Alberta. So I'm wondering about this scourge of finfluencers. So if there's, somebody spreading misinformation on TikTok, but they're not based on Alberta, can you go after them? And can you give me some examples of what you're seeing out there?
Well, I maybe would just start with the changes around securities in Alberta Securities Commission. There's three parts here. There's the good faith climate disclosure piece. There's the finfluencer penalties, and then we have the halt order, which is somewhat novel in the country, but will be likely mimicked by BC and others shortly. When it comes to the finfluencers, what we're trying to do is protect investors by people that don't have to disclose their interest or intent and are attempting to drive a stock up or down. It will only apply to those that are within Alberta. That's the only. It doesn't give us any broader jurisdiction across the country.
And your follow-up?
Yes, my follow-up. So, you were referring to the AIMCO stuff as protecting taxpayer money, but we're talking here about people's pensions, including some people who did not want AIMCO to manage their pension, and you're now taking away their ability to sue. You haven't done that with other lawsuits. I'm thinking of coal. So why retroactively go in and stop their ability to sue for this $1.3 billion?
Well, I look at this very simply. I say that in three parts. No one with a pension that was managed under this strategy will be impacted. It's a defined benefit pension of which the government of Alberta is still a proud partner. The other thing is that this has been remedied. We've had 2 overhauls of AIMCO since the strategy was in place. That isn't an issue going forward. And I guess the third part is, there's no extra fund at AIMCO to cover something like this. So it would fall on the backs of Alberta taxpayers. And we're talking about $1.3 billion minimum. We've had lots of conversations about the borrowing the province is already undertaking. And just it's something we're not willing to entertain.
Okay, next questions? Yes, Lisa.
Just to follow up on that, when it comes to the coal companies, that you could have done a similar situation where you made it so that they couldn't sue the Alberta government, or you could change your law. That also falls on the backs of taxpayers. So why doesn't that argument apply to the coal mining situation?
Well, we can get back some technical details to you on the coal settlements. It may seem the same, but it is technically quite different. But I can get you a more wholesome answer with the help of justice.
And is there anything in that Securities Act and those amendments in the legislation that defines like what a good faith claim is. Like, it's not based on accuracy or factual information. It's just, I'm a oil and gas company and I believe in the truthiness of this statement is enough of a defense to
No,
shield
the Securities Commission has some adjudication function as well. So, we're saying that this has to be the best information that they have available, and that would be, determined, through the ASC if that is in fact the case. If it isn't, then they would not be protected.
All right, thank you.
Part of the challenge I would just add is that the rules are very different across the country. We're fortunate that the chair of the ASC here in Alberta is also the chair of the Canadian Securities Administration, so has a lot of line of sight about what's happening across the country. So a lot of this is, we may be catching up to other provinces, but we may be leading somewhat too, but these are very much challenges that he and the ASC have seen across the landscape and brought to us.
All right, Jack?
Jack Farrell with the Canadian Press. On the misinformation spreaders bit, can you just run us through what the penalties would be? Like, are they fines? Are they 2-month ban on trading? Like, I'm just curious.
So some of that will be the discretion of the ASC. There are already penalties within the Act. This is kind of enabling in that sense, and we'll have to see where the ASC takes that later, but there's always some discretion.
Okay. And then, same topic, how do you, like if I think of the hypotheticals for this, like I'm thinking of someone tweeting that so-and-so oil company is going down, regardless of whether or not that's true. Are there like free speech considerations in that these penalties might like impede?
Well, I think the application will have to be very narrow. And, I think free speech is always a concern, but, it doesn't allow you to defraud someone. So we are about protecting the investor here, but it will have to be applied very narrowly.
Okay, and with that, we'll start to go to the phones. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Your first question comes from the line of Felix Gagne from Radio Canada. Your line is now open.
All right, I'll take you to another subject. Prime Minister Carney will soon announce a memorandum of understanding with Premier Smith on the construction of new pipeline. Conditions like tightening of carbon pricing and better support of carbon capture are expected. How realistic are those conditions for the province?
I might ask Minister Nixon to come to the mic, seeing as how he's been more involved in the bargaining.
Yeah, I'm going to be careful not to get ahead of the Premier and the Prime Minister. I will speak as somebody who's been on the negotiation committee. The conversations have gone well, as the Premier has already indicated to you. We're very positive and hopeful about the direction those conversations have gone in. But I don't think we're going to speak about any of those details until after both the Prime Minister and the Premier speak to Canadians and to Albertans. Other than to say, reiterate again, I think that we are in a very good spot, and there's been a lot of work done, and that Albertans should be very, very hopeful about those events. And I think we'll be pleasantly surprised shortly with the work that has taken place between both Premier Smith and Prime Minister Carney.
Follow up.
And who will be paying for a pipeline? How much will come from the province?
Well, again, I'm not going to speak that today. I mean, we will speak in more detail as those announcements are made. And energy obviously is in a better spot to speak broadly to much more to the economics. Again, we were sent in to have a serious conversation with the federal government to see spaces where we can create joint work that included getting a pipeline to Tidewater. That's a major goal of the government, as well as addressing the 9 bad laws. Those conversations have gone well, and I think shortly you'll hear from both the Premier and the Prime Minister more details.
All right, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from the line of Eileen Bell from CHED Radio. Your line is now open.
Thank you. Will changes to the Personal Income Tax Amendment Act change any rates Albertans pay, how we pay them, or what we see when we fill out our income tax forms?
No, these are largely housekeeping amendments to align us with federal changes.
Thank you. That's no follow-up.
Thank you. Please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from the line of Corey Sears from CBC News. Your line is now open.
Thank you for taking my call. This is a question for all three ministers, actually. You were part of government when the recall legislation was passed. With 9 petitions now underway, what do you think of those recall rules today?
I think well, I'll start if you wanted us all to answer. I think when we came in, I guess Minister Glubish and I came into 2019. Minister Nixon had been around a while before that. But this was a campaign commitment of Premier Kenney at the time. So we undertook a lot of work to try and implement and fulfill that promise. And then other changes were made, in this term. But I think the intent was always to have a way to deal with, elected officials that had shown egregious behavior, and it was a way to deal with them outside of the regular election cycles. I'm not going to speak much about what we're seeing today. I guess you can judge for yourself if you think that's how it's being used.
All right, thank you.
Great answer.
Yeah.
All right. With that, we will go to our. Oh, sorry, follow up.
Do any of you think that the law needs to be changed or tightened up at this point?
Sure.
As Mr. Horner said, when this legislation was originally made in the last legislature under Premier Kenney, it was designed to hold individual MLAs that may have done something egregious inside their constituencies. The legislation itself is designed to be a conversation between members of the legislature and their constituents. And I support that, ran on that multiple different elections, and something that's important to my constituents. To be clear, though, the legislation is also made clear that it's to be about individual constituencies. And so if there is any action taking place of joint third-party type of groups that are trying to participate in individual constituencies, other people from elsewhere in the province going into individual constituencies, that's a challenge. That's frankly already against the laws and something that would need to be looked to be strengthened. But that's not the same as saying that we don't want to continue with the recall legislation we brought forward. I also think that there is some changing circumstances when it comes to how data is managed. There has to be a conversation taking place. When we first started to have conversations about recall legislation here at the Alberta legislature, nobody was talking about things like AI yet, or how different types of data sources and data mining sources would be used in now the new stage of modern politics. Those are fair questions to ask as legislation evolves. But at the end of the day, I'm very confident my constituents won't recall me. And if somebody wants to spend a lot of time trying to get those signatures, I wish them the very best. And they have every right to do that. But it needs to be a conversation between an MLA and their constituents, not on an organized group that is trying to dismantle the government. That's not what recall legislation was ever designed to do.
All right, thank you. And with that, we'll go to the next caller in the queue.
Your next question comes from the line of Chris Marco from Calgary Herald. Your line is now open.
Hi, this is a question for Minister Glubish. Minister, it's been 1 year since the Alberta government released its roadmap to attract new data centers, and obviously the objective was to attract more than $100 billion of investment within 5 years. What progress have you made so far in that file? How much money has been raised in terms of investment coming into the province over the past year?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So in our effort to attract up to $100 billion of investment over 5 years, the first step to that was for the Alberta Electrical Systems Operator to approve an initial 1,200 megawatt tranche of power for allocation to data center projects. That allocation has happened. The project proponents behind the most significant projects that have received allocations under that are hard at work to advance their projects. Many of them have paid tens, if not over $100 million for their allocation. So there's been significant financial commitments made by these project proponents, both in terms of securing their power allocation, but also in terms of their engineering and site work. None of these have reached their final investment decision yet. But we're hopeful to see some more information on that in calendar 2026. In the meantime, my concierge team at Tech and Innovation is working daily with about a dozen different projects, including the ones that have their power allocation, as well as several that are either looking to do completely off-grid sites or are looking to bring their own power. So I'm still very optimistic that Alberta is going to be the premier destination in Canada and one of the top destinations in North America for this infrastructure. But as I said in my opening remarks, we want to engineer the outcomes that are good for all Albertans.
Thank you. And follow up?
Yes. How important is it for the province to see new gas-fired plants being built in order to provide power for the new data centers, particularly ones where there would be contracts between the developers to bring your own power to the province?
Well, I think the reason why that's important is because these data center facilities require 99.999% uptime. So they can't run on wind and solar. They need the certainty of either natural gas or hydro or nuclear. And the fact is, to build new nuclear or hydro in Canada, it's going to take at least 10 to 15 years. These folks need power today, and that's why natural gas is the only option for the foreseeable future. Now, the good news is in Alberta, we have hundreds of years of supply of natural gas. We've got decades of expertise on how to get it out of the ground and get it to where it needs to be, and we have all the expertise in this province on how to convert that to electricity. So to us, we see this as a natural fit where this can lead to a significant new domestic demand for our resources. And the way I outline it as an opportunity is to say, if we've had difficulties negotiating with the rest of Canada to allow for natural gas pipelines to get to the coast and export Alberta natural gas to global markets, this is a way for us to export the gas without it ever leaving the province. Instead, we convert it to ones and zeros through the AI data centers and export the compute through fiber optics. So it's a great opportunity for Alberta to grow and diversify its economy, leading into the economy of the future.
Thank you. With that, one more chance for the journalists in the room that didn't get a chance. Go ahead, Janet.
So for Minister Glubish, do you have a ballpark revenue estimate for this new levy, either for the first year it applies or like 5 years out, like some kind of estimate?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to depend on how big the projects are that do move forward. But, on average, you're looking at between $20 and $40 million per megawatt in costs for the chips. So if you were to look at, say, a 100 megawatt facility, just times that by 100, that's the size and scale of the investment required to for the chips. And then you can do the math on that with a 2% levy if it's grid connected, grid reliant, 1% if it's self-supply but grid connected, or as I said, 0% if they're fully off grid. But safe to say, if we're seeing tens of billions of dollars of investment into Alberta-based data centers, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of net new incremental tax revenue, which is good news to helping to cover public service costs that Albertans rely on every day.
Follow up for Minister Horner. We saw over the weekend quite a quick resolution to the AUPE, well, potential possible resolution to the AUPE strike, the nursing workers.
Didn't feel quick.
I'm sure it didn't. But you came up with extra money. You haven't told us how much money. I'd like to hear how much money, but whereas like with the teachers, that conflict dragged on for a long time, and you said we're only willing to spend $2.6 billion to resolve this, and in the end it was $750 million less than that. So can you explain to me how you were able to find extra money for AUPE workers, whereas with the teachers that was not the case?
Well, I think it's very, very different. Like with the teachers, we were, unfortunately in a position where we had very, I guess, ingrained positions, and we were in quite a long strike, the longest province-wide education strike in the country's history. I'd say what made this different is that although AUP gave their strike notice, they did return to the table and stayed at the table right till the end. So we continue to hash it out, work through the data, hear the arguments, and I'm very hopeful that it ratifies. But yeah, we didn't want to see a strike, even an essential services strike, and we're hopeful that it ratifies.
But did you take anything off the table for AUP like you did with teachers? Because you said teachers, we can't bargain on class size caps.
Well,
So
I
did
would say.
Did the bargainer say to AUPE, no, you can't bargain on this, that, or the other thing?
Well, I would say that AUP kept it about salary. They kept it about what was, we didn't have to. That was all that was on the table. We were talking about salaries and wages. It was pretty straightforward as far as collective bargaining that way.
All right, Sean, please go ahead.
Mr. Glubish, what's the latest with Kevin O'Leary and Wonder Valley? Is that still on track to happen? Is that one of the projects you think will help generate these hundreds of millions of dollars that you're hoping for?
Yeah, so that project is still in play. It's not a done deal. None of these projects are done deals until a final investment decision is made. But my concierge team continues to work with their team as they continue to do their engineering and all of the other regulatory work that is required in order to get a project like this to the finish line. So we'll continue working with them as long as they believe that there is merit, and we'll just have to wait and see where that one lands.
There was initially some objection from local First Nations to that project. Are you working through that, and perhaps did you learn something from that situation of how to engage First Nations earlier, maybe, so they don't have those kinds of objections? What do you make of that?
Well, look, we have very clear rules on what is expected of any industrial development project in the province, and none of that is going to change for data centers. Part of my job with our concierge team is to make sure that projects like the Wonder Valley proposal follow all of those rules, and if they have questions about how to do so, we provide support by convening the appropriate ministry or the appropriate regulator to the table. So, my message is to Albertans: no corners are going to be cut. All the rules are going to be followed, and no project will proceed unless it meets all of Alberta's very strict rules and processes. That will apply to Wonder Valley. We're confident that they will follow through on their obligations to consult, and we're not going to help push anything through that hasn't met those obligations.
All right, thank you. And with that, thank you, everyone.